So I'm kind of in this mode of like, well, what do I do with my free time now? And trying to sort that out. I'm like, maybe I have to pick up the guitar again. I haven't played in a long time. But
it has to be fun.
Yeah, and that's the thing is like I just like noodling around.
Yeah.
So that's
it's hard to switch from thing to thing sometimes.
Yeah.
You know, I find like that's why right now I'm so focused on this Plymouth Independent. I don't really have the time to think about anything else.
Yeah.
Music does require thought.
yeah, and it's like the thing that I do kind of in whenever I can find downtime is I'm like a big Dungeons and Dragons guy.
Yeah.
I love Dungeons.
Yeah.
And
not alone. I'm not, but I know so many people that are.
Yeah, and it's like trying to find the time to do it and prep because I always end up being the dungeon master, so like that is like a whole day in advance.
I would imagine.
And it's always like I have good times. And it's like or good ideas. I'm like I have to write that down and make like so I have like plans. It's just trying to find the time to do it. You know?
Yeah.
Being an adult's tough. But welcome back to the Old Colony Cast, a podcast about all things Plymouth and surrounding areas. If you've been listening to the last two episodes, you've been hearing Hannah and Fish pine for me because I was not around for the last two episodes. And they're not here today. I am doing a solo interview today with Mark Pothier.
You got it.
Oh, sweet. I usually screw that up. From the new Plymouth Independent. I saw it like announced on Facebook and immediately caught my attention. Is it a physical? You don't have a physical newspaper, is there?
We don't.
Okay.
It's purely online.
Yeah.
But
so how did it come about? Like, what is it? How did it come about? Like, how did you get involved?
Yeah, it came about before me. Early this year, I think a group of concerned people, one of them being Patrick Flaherty, who served one term on the select board,
Sure.
and a group of really smart people who are concerned about the lack of news coverage in town. It's not something unique to Plymouth. Across the country, we've lost so many newspapers.
Mm-hmm.
The numbers are staggering. I don't have them in front of me, but the result has been, and I hate these kind of cliched phrases, but news deserts all over the country where nobody is reporting on news at the local level, which is fundamental thing, a part of democracy.
Sure.
Yeah, and it's also where local level, it's where people connect with government the most, you know.
And it's where we live. It's kind of the stuff that most affect us.
We pay taxes,
Yeah.
we see the roads, we're wondering about this and that and how our money's being spent and where the community is going. We all throw up our hands when it has to do with the state, and Washington may as well be in another planet, right?
Right.
So, in any case, they were concerned. The Old Colony Memorial had been bought by Gannett, which is a huge corporation, owns USA Today. It's bought up hundreds, if not thousands, of newspapers across the country and effectively dismantled them.
Mm-hmm.
And to just carve off any remaining profits and basically left carcasses behind. And that's what's happened here, which is really sad because for a long time I was the editor of the Old Colony. That was my first real job once I stopped being a musician. Well, I didn't stop being a musician, but I had to actually make some money.
Yeah.
So
stop your professional.
Exactly. Yeah. And I always used to tell people that, this thing has been around for almost 200 years. I'm just a steward of it, and we'll bring it into the 21st century, and we'll do all those things, but eventually I'll be handing it off to somebody else, and it'll be around forever. It never occurred to me that this thing called the internet, which by the mid-90s was starting to bubble up, would affect news coverage so much. And newspapers did not really anticipate that very well and adapt to it very well. Classifieds went away, all those things happened, and as a result, the newspaper business was in big trouble. And of course, at the local level, that's what happened. The Old Colony became less and less of a viable news source to the point where most of us, including me, the former editor, had no idea what was going in town going on at all. I had gone to work for the Globe. It was kind of my dream job. I left the Old Colony in around 2000. I did a year-long fellowship, which was incredible, and then I went immediately to the Globe. So for the last 20-something years, I've just been a regular citizen too. I was commuting into Boston. I didn't know what was going on in town too much at all. I'd look at the Old Colony occasionally, and there was less and less in it, to the point where there wasn't anything local in it that I could see. So these folks, obviously, who formed the board of the Plymouth Independent, saw the same thing. Then they asked me to join the board, and I said, yeah, I should get involved in some way. But I think they had an alternative motive of eventually persuading me to leave my job at the Globe of 22 years and take this on. And initially I was like, no, I don't want to leave the Globe. I mean, that's, I really like it, and I have friends there, people I've worked with for a long, long time, have a huge impact at that level. But as several people pointed out to me, well, everybody leaves their job eventually.
Right.
And this is an opportunity. It's an important thing. It's something that I probably was well suited to do. So I said, okay, I will become the editor and go all in on this, with the goal of that bringing somebody on younger than me who could eventually take over. But I would help get it established, make it sustainable, give it, maybe a little bit of credibility, since I'm a quote-unquote veteran journalist.
Yeah, and I mean, there's something to be said about that.
Yeah.
Like an editor at the Globe, and then so it definitely brings some
kind of like a
credibility.
full circle thing people pointed out to me. I said, yeah, it is kind of full circle. And a really important time to be doing it. So that's the short story. I mean, these were many conversations over many months, and here I am.
And so, unlike newspapers, this is a nonprofit, correct?
Well, unfortunately, most newspapers are nonprofits. Not in a good way. Yes, we're a nonprofit, which means that we're registered as a nonprofit organization, and we're completely reliant on people donating money to get us up and running, which people have, but we need to have people doing that on a monthly basis, that kind of thing. We need to apply for grants, and we need to get business sponsorships. They're doing some of that. As the editor, I'm trying to not get involved with the fundraising so as to muddy the waters as to what we decide for news coverage. Yeah. But yeah, it's a nonprofit model, which is hard. I mean, it's a lot of work. It takes a lot of money to do real journalism. And I was able to hire 2 reporters right out of the gate, and they're both veterans with huge amount of knowledge. Andrea Estes being one of them, had a long career at the Globe as an investigative reporter, did many groundbreaking stories that resulted in people going to jail, including former Speaker of the House Sal DeMacy in federal prison. All kinds of things like that. She was at the Herald before that. And then the other hire is Fred Tice, who had a long career at WBUR, the NPR station in Boston. Before that, he did just an amazing number of things. I think he was the Mexico City bureau chief for CBS News at one point. He speaks 4 or 5 languages,
holy cow,
including Portuguese, which could come in handy because we have a Brazilian community here. So 2 really great veteran journalists, and then a lot of people raised their hand locally who have talents, photographers and people like that, and writers, and said, we just want this to work. We'll volunteer our skills.
Sure,
how can we help? Yeah. That's been amazing as well. So I guess your question was about a nonprofit. So it's a real grassroots thing. I mean, it's a start. People said, you're getting into a startup. It's going to be relentless. It's going to be 24/7. It'll be exciting. But you're not going to have the support system that you had at the Boston Globe. And I knew that, but it has been a 7-day-a-week thing so far.
But it doesn't sound like it's a startup, but like you have a high caliber of people already working for it, very experienced. Yep. Which this is just my lack of awareness, and part of why we do things like this is I had no idea. Like I knew it was starting up, and I'm like, oh, that's cute. That kind of thing. But like, no, that's apparently it's really
start
legit.
A website.
Yeah, exactly. Because I mean, I see that actually, when the Old Colony Cast started, we were just going to call it the Plymouth Podcast. And there was already a Plymouth Podcast. And I think they've maxed out at 4 episodes.
4 very good episodes.
Yeah, so it's just kind of like, there's so many people are just like, and that's part of what's great and terrible about the internet is the bar of entry so low that anyone can start something. But at the same point, there's so many things that start up and just never go anywhere. So it's kind of hard to separate what's what.
Yeah, that is a big problem. And what happens when there's a void is people fill it with their opinions, with rumors, with falsehoods and that kind of thing when it comes to news. And specifically, websites like Facebook pages like All Things Plymouth, which is huge, but can be extremely disturbing if you spend much time on it.
It's a dumpster fire.
Yeah. And that really concerned me. And I don't blame the administrators of it, but it's totally beyond anybody's control at this point. I think 95,000 people are on that thing.
It's insane how many people are on that. And people will post, and people will post underneath and be like, "You're in Ohio. Like, you don't have any connection here." And I don't know what it is about that group that just draws people to it.
It draws people that don't have a lot else to do, I think.
I guess, yeah. I mean, that's true too. Because there's a couple other groups that I'm on Facebook where I'm just like, who's got the time to...
Yeah. So that is a concern. Yeah, of course, as journalists, I'm all for freedom of speech. I'm not trying to censor anybody or anything like that, but you do need to get basic facts out there so people can make informed decisions about things. That's one of the things we hope to do. And the bar is pretty low because nobody else is doing it. But I did not want to come from the Globe and then just do something that was, kind of amateurish. So we wanted it from the beginning to send a message that this was going to be legit. Not that we won't make mistakes and we will learn from those mistakes, but we want it to be serious accountability journalism, kind of lifting the lid off things that have been in closed boxes for years and public officials who haven't had to answer to the public for anything, and they've kind of grown accustomed to that. I'm not saying they're all evil or have these ulterior motives, but you just become, when nobody's asking you, why are you saying that, or what does that mean, and how are we going to pay for that, you kind of get lazy, I think, and that's what's happened. And we're finding that right away with some officials kind of being shocked that if they don't comment or return our calls, it's going to say that in the story, and then they're like,
and then people are going to be like, why didn't you?
Wow, you called me out, and well, it's not calling you out; it's just you didn't respond,
right?
That kind of thing. So we're doing that, but at the same time, I really want the website to be a reflection of the community, and culture is a huge part of that. So if you go spend any time on the site, you'll see we'll have a lot of things like that. We have a forum for readers called Your View. We have a thing for artists called Your Art Here. My wife's an artist too, so I'm partial to that. But a place where people can submit their artwork and get it seen on the beyond their own Facebook page. I mean, you're
part of what we started doing was getting art on walls.
So it's hard to get art out there and there's so many talented people out there, and some of them aren't comfortable with displaying in a gallery or anything like that, but they're just out there, and so we're providing that. So all of that is important. Police news, police log, that kind of thing. For the first time, there's a police log on our site where you can. The Old Colony used to have it years ago, where you could just see what's happening on your street, that kind of thing. So we're trying to paint a whole picture. Accountability reporting is a big part of it, but it's just one part of it.
Yeah. That's, and like the community thing about like artists, and when I first moved to this town, I didn't realize how many talented artists, and then there's just as many talented musicians, and the stand-up comics in this area are amazing, and there's just so much going on that people don't know. They don't know what's going on in the town, and part of my job is to sell tickets to get people into events, and it is a constant uphill battle just trying to find new ways to get the word out. and people in my business rely on social media, but then the algorithms will change, or you end up, Facebook swears there's no such thing as shadow banning, but there's a thing called shadow banning, and like if you end up on the wrong side of that, then it's just all they want you to do is like throw more money at it. And so just trying to be part of the community is tough when you can't get the word out. And that's...
Well, like we spoke before we started recording this, that there is a place on our site for the things that you do. I mean, I think it's really great that you're doing it. Obviously, you're not in it for the money, and no artists are in it for the money, right?
Yeah.
So
the money would be nice.
We won't turn down money. Nonprofit doesn't necessarily have to be poor.
Yeah.
But we are reaching tens of thousands of people a week already with our site, which circumvents Facebook algorithm. So I think we can get to a lot of people. We're even publishing some stories from student newspaper, Plymouth North, and we hope to have some stories from Plymouth South soon as well. And they're thrilled about it because they have a beautiful student newspaper. It looks really great online, but it's only going to reach so many people within that community, whereas the Plymouth Independent is reaching a broader audience. So if we can do that with art as well, and it's always a struggle to get people to go to actual events, isn't it?
Yeah.
Especially these days when people are having dinner at 4:30 and 5 o'clock and then going home to Netflix.
Yeah, it's such a weird time, and then you try to like rationalize, and part of the job is trying to be like, well, why aren't they going out? Like what? And so then you end up in these rabbit hole conversations being like, well, it's maybe part of the economy, and then, okay, sure, it's the winter, and, people are uptight about what's going on over in, Israel, is that part of it? And then, you end up being like, it's got to be easier than that. Like, am I making it overly complicated? But, I mean, it seems like Plymouth open-armed, greeted you, but, I mean, was there build-up to, how did you launch it? What was that?
We launched it just very simply essentially Facebook and Instagram, that kind of thing, through social media, and then trying to get people to sign up get on our email list. So every day, we hope to have a legit newsletter at some point where it's curated, where somebody's writing something, say, hey, good morning, Plymouth, and here's what's going on, and all the links in there. That drives a lot of traffic. It's also convenient for people because you get this email, and it's like, oh, this is what's new on the Plymouth Independent site, and you just click on it instead of having to search around, anything like that. But that's how we've done it. It's just totally been grassroots so far. We do not have a marketing team or anything like that. We have a group of people we call ambassadors, a small group of people that signed up early on, and they're helping to spread the word. They're just community members who are interested in this thing doing well, and they're just posting links and spreading the word as they meet people.
Kind of local influencer kind of thing?
Kind of a local influencer thing. So, but they're not getting any swag or anything from us. So, I mean, it's a very simple way so far. We're, doing things like this, talking to you about it, helps, everything like that.
Sure, yeah. And we even, have our Plymouth influencer. Are you familiar with Plymouth 400?
Yes, I am.
So we've interviewed 400. It was our most downloaded episode we've ever had. Voice changing technology and the whole nine.
That's secretive,
right? And I actively work in the disinformation campaign because I've been accused several times of being 400, which absolutely not true because I don't know enough about Plymouth. But I've definitely let people think I was because it's just to me it's one of the most fun things, and they've been really great and kind of promoting us and sharing some of our stuff, and we've had people at our event like, how'd you hear about this? I'm like, oh, I saw it on 400. And so those grassroots things that kind of catch people's attention can be so powerful.
And at a certain point, you build up this critical mass, I think. We hope to. Maybe when we get to 10,000 people getting our email every day, that will be, it's hard to say, but the numbers so far, because we get of course, readouts on everything, engage time on a story, page views, unique visitors, all that. I don't have the numbers in front of me. Patrick Flaherty, who's the board secretary, does most of that, but it's been tens of thousands of people, unique visitors, in the first 2 weeks.
That's amazing.
To the site.
Yeah.
So it's fantastic. I can't keep up with the emails and the story ideas. We have a thing at the top of the homepage called Tip Drop.
Yeah.
And we are getting lots of tips, and a few people have been, it's amazing because there was this void, and now we're suddenly here, and people will send me emails like, we're having this event, this charity event, and we'd like to have a story, and can you send someone? And I have to be really diplomatic and explain we probably can't send someone, but if you wrote something up, you wrote a letter or sent us a photo, be glad to publish something about it. We just simply can't get to everything. It's a good problem to have, but it also indicates to me the thirst that's out there for news again. So many emails in the first week said things along this line, some that I've read more in the Plymouth Independent in the first 2 days than I read in the Old Colony Memorial in the last year that pertain to Plymouth.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, on one hand, that's not too hard to do because I looked at it as things about Scituate and Ipswich or whatever.
And then, if memory serves, half the time you click on it and it brings you to a link where you have to sign up to pay for it.
You have to pay for what? Pay for news that's not about Plymouth.
Right, yeah.
And again, that all really pains me because people that were around back then, I've been around here for a long time, the paper was really good, the Old Colony Memorial, and I'm not saying it because I was the editor, but we had like a great, diverse, not racially, but we had a great group of people who were diverse in terms of the talents they brought to it. And we had people covering everything. At the holiday season, we would have 128-page editions of the Old Colony Memorial with 4 sections and then special sections on top of it. It was insane. The number of households, the percentage, at one point topped 80%. Meaning 80% of the homes
in Plymouth
subscribe to the paper, not even buying it on the newsstand. But this is where we are now, so we're trying to build this to adapt to where we're at, and where we're at is not to have a physical product just because most people aren't consuming their news that way, and it's really expensive to print and distribute a newspaper.
Oh yeah, for sure. I remember, I think it was one of the first stories that I saw you guys post, and I'm like, oh, this is not fluff. I want to say it was about worker housing. Is that
affordable housing?
Affordable housing,
which is a huge issue.
It's a very huge issue in this town, and I know Cape Cod it was going through a similar, probably still going through it, but they're basically pricing out the people that work, do the everyday jobs, and it's so I saw that and I'm like, wow, this is not what I was expecting. I was expecting kind of like, isn't the parade great? And which I'm sure you guys have too, but
we did have parade.
But it's nice to see kind of those stories that aren't necessarily all sugar cane and gumdrops, and do those get better traction, you think? Because I feel like
that story got a lot of views. I'm not sure of the number, but that story on affordable housing by Andrew Estes got a lot of views and a lot of comments from people, emails regarding that. And I would say that housing will be a consistently important story for us as we go on, because what's happening is you have these higher end apartments are coming in, which and there, a lot of them are around the downtown area, which is great because downtown years ago was kind of desolate and there wasn't much down there in terms of variety or or retail or restaurants or anything like that.
Yeah. I mean, there's a couple right across the street over Quarters Park.
Yeah.
There's a couple buildings over there. Yeah.
A couple of very big
Huge
buildings.
buildings, yeah.
So the thing is, you want that because it does bring in, say, young professionals who otherwise might move closer to Boston, but they're going to be here. They love Plymouth. Plymouth has so much to offer, and they're going to inject money into the economy and help fuel this renaissance downtown. But at the same time, people that have been here a long time or people who don't have that kind of higher end double income, it becomes a real struggle because that raises rents across the board and that kind of thing. And housing prices, of course, like everywhere, have gone up. Comparatively speaking, Plymouth is still a bargain compared to going north, even just to say, and never mind Duxbury, but going up, into Pembroke and that area. It's super expensive, but we don't have the kinds of high-paying jobs here and the kinds of numbers that can support for those kind of rents for most people. So it's a big problem, and developers don't have a huge incentive to build so-called affordable housing, which in many cases is not that affordable.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's the other thing is I was seeing what people are. There's a friend of mine who, when I first moved to Plymouth, I had 2 roommates in a 3-bedroom apartment, and a friend of mine is in a studio apartment on, I'm not sure if it's Main or Court, but that's that stretch.
We're never sure which.
Yeah, I don't.
Yeah. Or Sandwich Street.
And granted, he can see the water from his apartment.
Yeah, water view.
But he's paying more for a studio apartment than the 3 of us paid for. And it's a few blocks away.
Yeah, and how long ago was that when you were?
10 years?
Yeah, so that's not that long.
It's not that long.
Yeah, and then everything else has gone up too.
Yeah, and I'm not sure, he might have, heat and whatever included, but, I mean, that's a huge...
He has HBO.
Yeah. For that kind of money that he's paying, he should get a lot more than HBO.
Yeah, we have, my wife and I have a friend, actually we're meeting her for dinner tonight, who lives downtown, and she just had to move out of her apartment because the rent was going up so much, and she found another place downtown. But it was very stressful.
Yeah. To
find a new place and something that was in her price range. So you definitely don't want to. I did an interview recently with Tatum Stewart, who has Plymouth General Store.
Never heard her.
Yeah. And she's amazing, and she's doing all this stuff and bringing in. She has a very nice aesthetic. And someone said, I love what she's doing, all power to her, and these folks who are coming in, these apartments that are $3,000 and up a month, it's great, but there needs to be a place for, us townies or
her staff. Like you asked her how hard it was for her to staff that store, and part of it is they can't live around here. Yeah. And
I'm sure she doesn't disagree with that. I mean, it's not up to a single business owner to,
of course,
to solve that problem. But it is true. So it's a mix. I had people come up to me and say, I wish it could go back to what it was. And one I said, well,
I hate that. It drives me crazy.
I was here in the 80s. It wasn't that great.
Yeah.
And plus, guess what? We can't go back.
Yeah. Was it the Governor? I always get the Governor Bradford, the old hotel that just got remodeled,
which was a complete dump.
Yeah, and a friend of mine's like, "Oh, it was such a beautiful building." I'm like, "No, it wasn't.
No, it was not. It was not a beautiful building."
I'm like, "It was a brick block. Like it was. It's just what you remember. Like, let that go. Like, there's nothing wrong with change, but people hate when things change."
They do hate when things change, but we can change and still retain the good things.
Yeah, for sure.
Plymouth has a lot of growing pains and it's growing just because it's a desirable place to be. That's not a bad thing, but we have to look at the form of government, the efficiency of government, a lot of things to look at, and it's complicated, but just complaining about it and lamenting, how things have changed and are changing, that's not going to do anything. That's all things Plymouth.
Yeah, exactly. So do you, now that you're editor of this hyper-local newspaper, have you seen a change in people's way they address you? Is that, like, are you worried about that kind of thing? Been like, oh, that's Mark. He's, you know,
well,
he wrote that piece about so-and-so, or, you know, you walk into a place and be like, hey, Mark.
Yeah.
You know,
somebody said, I hope you have a good home security system. You know, I have journalist friends that gone to war zones and just amazing things that really put themselves in jeopardy. I'm just doing local journalism. And it is
those
something
people can be the nastiest.
They can be the nastiest. And, you know, when I was thinking of leaving the Globe, a couple of colleagues said to me, and I had already kind of realized this, that at the Globe, I was somewhat insulated because it's a big institution and I was dealing mostly with city, state, federal issues. A lot of biotech and things like that were part of my responsibilities editing that. So a lot of times you were dealing with media people or marketing people or big companies at high level, and you're kind of insulated. But once I made the decision to come back to local, I knew that, you know, it would be street level.
Yeah.
And that has happened, mostly for good, and I'm fine with it. At this stage of my career, I'm not really interested in being. I'm not a politician. I'm not going to be polite, but we're not just going to write fluff stories, and we're not going to. You know, I'm not working for the Chamber of Commerce. That's one way to say it. So I don't really have any fear of that. And if people disagree with things, that's great. I mean, that's fine. In fact, this morning I was telling somebody who said someone else was upset about how they were portraying a story, and they were thinking of writing a letter. And I said, they should write a letter.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah,
I'm not going to censor their letter. Run their letter. We have a section called Your View. So, yeah, that part of it I knew going in could be tough. But then on the other hand, I was walking Saturday morning through Brewster Garden, and two women just spontaneously started applauding as I walked by. Now, I don't know if that was for my walking style or what I was wearing, which was an old sweatshirt, but I think it might have been because they were happy to see the Plymouth Independent here. And I think as we go along, people will see that, yeah, they're not always going to like what we write, but on balance, they will see that, oh, it's a great thing to have facts and stories and issues explained on a free website.
Yeah.
It's hard to complain about that too much.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. But it's hard. We don't do a particularly good job. We tend to put our opinions in these things a lot, but you kind of want...
Well, you want that in a podcast.
Yeah. But I mean, you still kind of want to be approachable to anybody. Like, you don't want to be super divisive, and we're, you know, we definitely have our leanings, but there's no question there. But that's got to be challenging to kind of play it right down the middle, because even when you're playing it right down the middle, some people are still going to think you're leaning one way or the other.
Yeah, there is no really middle, right? I mean, there is, objectively speaking, there is no objective coverage, right?
Sure,
I mean, everybody has some kind of viewpoint.
Yeah.
So, and to that end, like, given my long background as a business editor, I am writing a column called Business Beat, in which I am putting in, I don't call it sort of the opinion, but my strong voice is the way I would put it, which comes from lived in the town since the late 80s and seeing things change and meeting a lot of people. And my column is infused with that. And I'm not going to apologize for that, because we don't want to be bland and we want to have a little bit of an edge. A few people have said to me, oh, it's kind of edgy. And I'm like, really? I don't think it's that edgy. I don't really want to do boring journalism and have stories like, you know, the select board called their meeting to order at 7:01 on the agenda. And,
this dog wraps its own Christmas presents. You know, that kind of stuff.
Wait a minute.
I don't know. There's always that kind of... I hate that stuff on the news when they're just... I'm not a big fan of a lot of news in general, but anytime it's around a holiday, I'm like, I so don't care about the 47-pound world record-setting turkey.
How about interspecies videos? A dog helping a rabbit.
Well, that's TikTok. I'll watch that all day long.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't call it news. Like, everything in this place, you know?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So we want it to be, I don't think, edgy.
Mm-hmm.
Everything should have a little bit of an edge to it, I think, to make it interesting. And I'm stressing that with the reporters as well. Plus, also, people are really busy and they have so many options for news, and I feel like the Plymouth Independent needs to, an overused word again, but curate things to like say, this is what was really going on at this meeting. Not that we want to cover a million meetings, but because we can't. Plus, most of them aren't that interesting, but there are broader issues that do come up in meetings, and therefore we should be at that to provide context. But I think it's kind of our job to distill things down and not expect people to have been following some planning board saga that's been going on for 6 years, and all these players know all the details and they talk about it like you should know too.
Right.
And you're an idiot if you don't, or
or what they're talking about seems like inconsequential, but the lead up to it means something.
Right.
Yeah.
So that is our job, and we have to kind of learn that because, like I said earlier, I'm immersing myself back in the community. Ignorance is bliss, and for a long time I was ignorant of what was going on. Pay my taxes, pay my excise bill and all that, and looked at Water Street being dug up and said, what the hell's going on there? I don't really know. Well, now we've written 2 stories on that. Turns out it's a real fiasco.
I'm gonna have to read those because I was talking about it with a friend the other day, and I know a lot of people and business owners and whatnot downtown, and so I'm always like, well, I heard, and they're like, really? I'm like, that's what I was told. So I'm always like putting these I don't know, because the worst thing I want is to be like, oh, I heard it was this, that, and the other thing, and then next thing. I run into someone downtown, and they're like, oh, I heard from so-and-so that you said, and I'm like, no.
Right, so that's what we're doing, and I am posting some of those things on social media, including All Things Plymouth, just so if people are interested, here's a story with the actual facts in it. Of course, as is typical, many people don't bother to actually click on the story, but they use that as a launching pad to just offer their opinions on it without actually...
But Mark, they read the headline.
They might have read the headline. But, another example is a couple of weeks ago, God, it's only been 2.5 weeks since we started publishing the season. A couple of years ago, we did this story now, that the Anejo restaurant coming into where San Diego's was, that deal was about to fall apart because the town was requiring it to put in an elevator to comply with the ADA.
Yeah.
And guess what? That's not true. They didn't have to do that for a variety of reasons, because of the extent of the renovations, because there's access on the first level to everything, et cetera, et cetera. But, boy, that was spreading around town fast, and it only took a couple of calls to dispel that. And so I included that in a short story that just said, don't worry, it's still coming.
Yeah.
But that seems like a simple thing, but those things can feed on themselves and then become a big deal. It's like, this town, look at this, what they're doing. And, of course, someone else used the opportunity to say, great, we don't need another Mexican restaurant. Okay.
Like you missed the point of
this. That's okay. You don't have to go.
You're right. It's so there's so many times that you can, and there's good and bad to it, because I remember there's an old How I Met Your Mother episode where they talk about how Google has ruined kind of like the good bar argument. Because you can be like, oh, it was this way. No, it wasn't. And now you just Google and be like, oh, no, see, it's right there. Like, but yeah, I had one recently where someone was adamant that the crack in Plymouth Rock was because someone detonated dynamite on it.
Sounds good.
And I'm like, that's not true. And he's like, yeah. I'm like, no, it's not. And like, it's part of the Rock's history. We've done that episode. And so, like, we did a Google search sitting there at the bar, and apparently someone at some point did detonate some dynamite on the rock. It really had no damage. It's a rock. And But he's like, no, I'm pretty sure it's still cracked it. And it's just like, I love that kind of like, okay.
The Rock has suffered a lot of indignities over the years.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I actually wrote about it for the Boston Globe magazine that, it's a symbol.
Yeah.
It's not, okay, we know it's small, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
We've heard that one before, but that's really not what it's all about. I want to turn the tables on you just for a minute and ask you about it, because going back to the art scene.
Yeah.
Just, what do you think? I mean, I really admire what people like you are doing to try to ignite it and get it to go to the next level. I feel like from my time living here that it's been really conservative. There's sort of like this establishment. There's a Plymouth Guild and that kind of thing.
It's lighthouses and sailboats?
Yeah, fishermen's heads suspended over the horizon.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think that's changing a little bit, but obviously there's more out there, right?
It's interesting because that's, I think, part of why we found success, where you have, and there's nothing wrong if you like painting.
There's nothing wrong with it.
But me, I grew up on cartoons and comic books, and so like my favorite art is like lowbrow artists that's like based on tattoos and kind of subversive. And
let me see, R. Crumb.
R. Crumb is a little before my time.
Yeah, but still kind of.
Yeah, but that kind of
American Splendor.
Coop. Do you know who Coop is?
Yeah.
I love Coop's work. Shag. I had Scrojo on the other podcast. His stuff's great. So like rock concert posters and album covers and oh my god, I'm blanking on his name. He's a movie poster artist, which you don't see anymore. And there was a great documentary on him. But he did like Goonies and all the Indiana Jones movies, like him. Do you know who Wayne White is?
I don't know who Wayne White is.
So I didn't either, and then I watched a documentary about him. I'm like, oh my god, Wayne White has been around my entire life. Like he was the art director on Pee-wee's Playhouse.
Oh, okay.
Then he went on, became the art director on Beekman's Lab, and now he does he goes to the thrift store and finds old paintings and paints work is swears and funny statements, and I was just kind of like that kind of stuff that would never fly at the Guild is the stuff that I love because it's different, it's weird, it's quirky. So that's kind of inadvertently, we didn't plan it that way. Because one of the places we started working with was Driftwood when Driftwood was around.
Oh, and Driftwood was a great place for a few years.
And they were kind of the same mentality where they were like, we don't care if it upsets someone on the wall, they can go eat somewhere else. And so I find art that elicits a emotion. Whether you hate it or love it is fine. It's the stuff that you look at and walk by and don't even think about.
Yeah, a couple of weeks ago in the vacant space that was once the gun store. Don't get me started on the gun store.
Yep.
And all those signs. But they had some kind of art display. They were having some kind of auction. And,
I missed that.
Oh, my God. It was a god-awful... you couldn't pick it. I'm sorry if any of those artists out there. I think it was some company that just came in and put they go into a motel and say, come to this motel and we're selling sofa-sized art this weekend.
Sofa art, yeah.
Yeah, that kind of stuff. But anyway, it was so depressing just to look at that stuff in the big ornate frame, and it's just what you'd imagine.
The perfect example is to your right.
Yeah, but that's nice.
Well, this is the thing. It was here when we moved in, and the landlord's like, you can keep it. I'm like, what the hell do I want that for?
Listeners were looking at an image of the world and what would you call that?
It's kind of metallic.
It's cool.
Yeah, it's fine. My business partner loves it.
Well, yeah.
So I'm like, I don't. It's not my thing.
I'm talking about dandelions in a vase on a table in a giant ornate frame, that kind of thing.
In the other room, I have a, I believe it's a grizzly bear that is drawn by a friend of mine.
Cocaine bear? Or grizzly bear?
No, this is pre-cocaine bear. But it is done in beer.
Oh, cool.
So I'm like, that is my kind of thing. Like, I
Yeah.
love that. And
Well, here's the thought: is that maybe there's something we could do in the Plymouth Independent, and maybe some you're interested in. But I just feel like we have quite a few vacant spaces downtown right now. I'm
There is
looking at
quite
you,
a few.
Second Wind. I wish that's a story some point. I love Second Wind, but man, is that ever going to happen?
You know, it's funny, like, for the longest time I kept asking when they were going to open because I
gave
thought it
up.
was funny, and now I'm like, it's not funny anymore.
It's not
now I'm
funny
just
at
like,
all. It's
sorry.
sad.
Yeah.
It looks really sad. But in any case, I just thought, like, there's so many artists. Like, can we get artists to put up murals or things in those windows? It would be so cool downtown to have that.
Yeah.
Instead of just having coming soon written black magic marker or something on it.
That could
But it's
it could be easily done.
Except the town will put up so much red tape that then no one will want to do it, maybe.
There's that. Some of that becomes art by committee, which is not fun.
No.
I have been on the end of that where you're sitting in a room with like 9 people and you're being like, this isn't what I signed up for.
Yeah.
But the other thing then comes fair compensation for the artist. And, I'm sure your wife can explain being an artist, but people look at Walmart couch art, and then what someone is actually selling, and like, well, I can go to Walmart and get. I'm like, yeah, but it's different. Like, it's not. So that becomes a tricky part.
Mm-hmm.
I've had a few people reach out to me about doing some art events, and they'll be like, we'll give them like $50, and be like, it's going to take them 3 days.
Yeah.
And they have to buy the supplies. So that's
tough.
the hardest part.
Well, I'll plug one more time the Your Art Here feature we have in the Plymouth Independent, which is, if you go to the website and you look for that section, Your Art Here, it'll explain how to do it. But it's pretty simple that if you're an artist in Plymouth and you want to display, realizing it's not the same as seeing a piece of artwork in person, of course, but if you want to put an image up of your artwork, you just send us a brief description, and if you want to sell it, give us your email address. We'll put that on there.
Oh, that's awesome.
And I mean, we're not taking a cut or anything. We just want to get it out there. Right now, I think we already have about 10 up there, so we're developing a little, like, gallery online, which I want to encourage, and it can be photo, it can be anything. And also, being a musician, I would like to, at some point, have a place where we can have music tracks on the site.
There's a lot of talented musicians.
There's a lot of talented musicians, and as we both know, you can get your music out there, but getting people to listen to it is something else entirely. We don't need to go into that subject, but it's the whole thing of dismantling of the record industry, and accessibility is there for everybody now. But
you're going to talk about people who can't make money. What they're
people
doing.
making money,
tough,
or it's like 0.1%, and the Taylor Swifts and below that, which is everybody is below that.
It was Weird Al put out the Spotify pay, sent the check he got from Spotify, I think was like $18. This is Weird Al. Like,
I'm on Spotify. I haven't even got a 3-cent check. But it did have a song in a movie that's out.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, it's called Mutt.
Okay.
It's an indie film that won a big award at Sundance and Berlin Film Festival.
Cool.
And under the name Adventure Set, I recorded with my partner, Ken Scales. And we have a song in that movie, which is it's on Netflix now, actually.
Yeah. Oh, I'll have to check it out.
Yeah, it's on Netflix, and it's also on Apple TV.
Nice.
Yeah, it's towards the end of the movie.
Yeah.
A crucial scene.
It's still there.
Well, it's in a big scene, so we're happy.
And the other thing that I want people to realize is music and art are always brought up, but there's more. We got involved in the stand-up community completely by accident. I was bored during COVID. That was what happened. And now we have several comedy shows.
Mostly New World?
We do New World. That's the only one we do in Plymouth. We do New World. We do Barrel House Z in Weymouth.
Okay.
Brewery 44 in Carver. Sometimes Berkeley Beer. Then some other spatter.
Non-essential comedy, is that what you call it?
Non-essential comedy, yeah.
I know that.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, I think we've had a couple listings on the site, but keep sending them in or have someone send them in.
But I was blown away at how good the stand-up comics are in this area. They're not all from Plymouth. They're, Boston, South Shore, whatever. But, I mean, there's one that jumps to mind, and she's got a show coming up in, not Hyannis, it's 400 East on the Cape. Harwich? I think it's East Harwich. Janet McNamara. She's in my top 10 comics of all time.
Wow.
Every time I see her, comics kind of do the same set over and over again. In tears, I'm laughing so hard. She's so funny. And I'm like, how does she not have a Netflix special? That kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's amazing. And I wish more people would go out and check them out. It's a hard ticket to sell.
And we certainly need to laugh. Right?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah.
More than ever. Yeah.
There's
who else is in your top 10?
It would be like Carlin.
Well,
Carlin's got to be number one. God. And then it kind of like shuffles around. Carlin's always been there. I know he's had a really...
Louis C.K.?
Yep. And I got
his show was brilliant.
Yeah. And I got to say, out of all the people that were Me Too'd, or however you want to phrase that, I feel like he took the most responsibility. There were some other people who were just kind of like trying to play it off, and he's like, nope. I don't know, I don't know what to say. It happened.
Yeah. Chappelle's kind of gone off the deep end.
Chappelle, but even on that same aspect, and it's kind of that separating the art from the artist, Bill Cosby is an amazing stand-up comic. Terrible human being.
I think you're allowed to say that.
But amazing stand-up comic. Terrible human being.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like that becomes a really hard thing to say. Like,
well, that's the whole thing, separating the artist from the art.
And I think a lot of that is the time we're in. Because if you go back and look, there's musicians that did some really shady things.
Oh, yeah.
That people love. That you'd be like, oh my God, I love this band. And be like, yeah, well,
I was in the
business. They were around now.
I was in the business. I know.
Yeah.
I was in the band Ministry back in the...
You were in the band Ministry?
Mm-hmm.
With Al Jurgensen?
Yeah.
Get out.
Yes. Not for a long time. When it was
wow.
It was more of a synth pop thing. So,
yeah. So, this is early Ministry.
Yeah.
So, okay.
I spent a couple years around Al Jurgensen, so I know some of the darker side.
Yeah, he's a weirdo.
He is, but he's still around doing it.
That's yeah. Like I was big in the Ministry and oh my God,
Psalm 69 at Classic.
Yeah, they had so many side projects.
Some of which we can't even say.
Yeah. My Life with the Thrill Kill Cult.
Yeah,
it was. They weren't a side project, but they were kind of in that same genre.
Yeah. So that was my other life before becoming a journalist. I was a journalist.
That's crazy. No offense, and I don't mean this sound terrible, but looking at you, I'm like, I can't picture.
I can send you some pictures.
I would love that.
A lot of peroxide involved.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And let me see, Aquanet.
Yeah.
Extra strength unscented.
Yeah.
And I'm amazed I still have hair.
Oh my God! But now, we're almost an hour in. I feel like we're just scratching the surface.
That's okay.
I feel like you have to come on the other show where we can swear and talk.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Where can people go to check out the news?
Yeah, it's just PlymouthIndependent.org, or you just put in Plymouth Independent, Google if you want, and find us. And I urge everybody to, on the site, there's things, sign up for our email. We will not bombard you with ads or anything, but most mornings you'll find in the inbox, hey, this is new on the site. And the link will be right there, so it makes it really easy. Because we want to get, people have said to me, is it a weekly? Is it a daily? Is it a monthly? And it's no, it's a website.
Yeah.
And as things come up,
they go up. Yeah,
they go up, that kind of thing. So some people are still adjusting to that.
And it's funny, I was very opposed to blowing up people's inboxes with emails because I hate that. But then we started using, because we use Eventbrite to sell tickets, and they have a thing where you can email your past people who've purchased your tickets in the past. We get great response, and I send them out daily. And I'm like, I thought that would be too much. And people are like, oh no, I get to know what you're doing. And so it's...
Plus it's local. Most of the things I'm getting are from, Banana Republic or somebody that you bought something there once and then you're getting a million emails. This is local.
Yeah.
And it actually is of some use or interest.
And yeah, it can pertain to you.
Yeah.
It could be on your street.
It could be on the street. Yeah. It could be in the police log.
Mark, thank you for taking the time to come talk to us. This was great. And it's a lot of fun.
Thanks. And we look forward to having some Inebri-art content. And doing the air quotes because I hate that word content because it really diminishes hard work that people do. But having that kind of stuff on our site will really enhance it and show people like we are trying to present full spectrum of Plymouth, which is a lot, and it's getting more and more every day.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
And this is the part where we stop talking.
And thanks for checking out the show today, listeners. If you enjoyed the content today, you can go over to patreon.com/Inebri-art to support the show. You can join over there for just a few dollars a month and help us provide this fun content that you just checked out. You can also email us at Inebri-art.com with your questions, complaints, and concerns, or you can find us on all social medias at Inebri-art or at Inebri-art6 on Instagram. And also don't forget to check out our other shows, Bar Talk Podcast, Old Colony Cast, Inebri-art, and all the other shows on the Inebri-art Network, which you can find at Inebri-art.com. Thanks again for listening.